In the center of the dust-laden floor rose a curiously angled stone pillar, some 4 feet in height, and 2 in average diameter, covered on each side with a bizarre, crudely incised, and wholly unrecognizable hieroglyphs. On this pillar rested a metal box of peculiarly asymmetrical form, its hinged lid thrown back, and its interior holding what looked beneath the decade-deep dust to be an egg-shaped or irregularly spherical object some 4 inches through. Around the pillar, in a rough circle, were 7 high-backed Gothic chairs, still intact, while behind them, ranging along the dark-paneled walls, were 7 colossal images of crumbling, black-painted plaster, resembling more than anything else the cryptic carven megaliths of mysterious Easter Island. In one corner of the cobweb chamber, a ladder was built into the wall, leading up to the closed trapdoor of the windowless steeple above. As Blake grew accustomed to the feeble light, he noticed odd bas-reliefs on the strange, open box of yellowish metal. Approaching, he tried to clear the dust away with his hands and handkerchief, and saw that the figurines were of a monstrous and utterly alien kind, depicting entities which, though seemingly alive, resembled no known life forms ever to have evolved on this planet. The 4-inch seeming sphere turned out to be a nearly black, red striated polyhedron with many irregular flat surfaces, either a very remarkable crystal of some sort or an artificial object of carved and highly polished mineral matter. It did not touch the bottom of the box, but was held suspended by means of a metal band around its center, with 7 queerly designed supports extending horizontally to angles of the box's interior wall against the top, near the top. The stone, once exposed, exerted upon Blake an almost alarming fascination. He could scarcely tear his eyes from it, and as he looked at its glistening surfaces, he almost fancied it was transparent, with half-formed worlds of wonder within. Into his mind floated pictures of alien orbs with great stone towers, and other orbs with Titan mountains, and no mark of life, and still remoter spaces, where only a stirring and vague blackness told of the presence of consciousness and will. Now, one thing that we can say is that certain materials, certain shapes, certain sizes, certain combinations of patterns have certain effects. A lot of the things that people will see in grimoires are of a nature that it's more about, are you willing to go through the process? But it doesn't mean that the form utterly doesn't matter. There may be a cheaper way to do the form than what's listed. You don't have to have a $2,000. You don't have to have a $200,000 animal skin of an endangered animal to have to perform your certain rites of that sort, if you know what I'm talking about. When he did look away, it was to notice a somewhat singular mound of dust in the far corner near the ladder to the steeple. Just why it took his attention he could not tell, but something in its contours carried a message to his unconscious mind. Plowing toward it, and brushing aside the hanging cobwebs as he went, it began to discern something grim about it. Hand and handkerchief soon revealed the truth, and Blake grasped with a baffling mixture of emotions. It was a human skeleton, and it must have been there for a very long time. The clothing was in shreds, but some buttons and fragments of the cloth bespoke a man's gray suit. There were other bits of evidence shoes, metal clasps, huge buttons for round cuffs, a stick pin of bygone patterns, a reporter's badge with the name of Old Providence Telegram, and a crumbling leather pocketbook. Blake examined the latter with care, finding within it several bills of antiquated issue, a celluloid advertising calendar for 1893, some cards with the name Edwin M. Lillibridge, and the paper covered with penciled memoranda. This paper held much of a puzzling nature, and Blake read it carefully at the dim westward window. Its disjointed text included such phrases as the following: Professor Enoch Bowen, home from Egypt, May 1844, buys Old Free Will Church in July, his archaeological work and studies in occult well known. Dr. Drown, a Fourth Baptist, warns against starry wisdom in sermon, December 29th, 1844. Congregation 97 by end of 45. 1846, 3 disappearances. First mention of shining trapezohedron. 7 disappearances, 1848. Stories of blood sacrifice begin. Investigation, 1853, comes to nothing. Stories of sounds. Father O'Malley tells of devil worship with box found in great Egyptian ruins. Says they call up something that can't exist in light. Flees a little light, and banished by strong light. Then has to be summoned again. Perhaps got this from the deathbed confessions of Francis X. Feeney, who had joined Starry Wisdom in 49. These people say that the shining trapezohedron shows them heaven and other worlds, and that the haunter of the dark tells them the secrets in some way. Story of Orrin B. Eddy, 1857. They call it up by gazing at the crystal and have a secret language of their own. 200 or more in congregation, 1863. Exclusive of men at front. Irish boys mob church in 1869 after Patrick Reagan's disappearance. Veiled article in J. March 72, but people don't talk about it. 6 disappearances in 1876. Secret committee calls on Mayor Doyle. Action promised, February 1877. Church closes in April. Gang Federal Hill boys threaten doctor and vestrymen in May. 181 persons leave the city before the end of 77. Mention no names. Ghost stories begin around 1880. Try to ascertain truth of report that no human being has entered church since 1877. Ask Lanigan for photograph of place taken 1851. Restoring the paper to the pocketbook and placing the latter in his coat, Blake turned to look down at the skeleton in the dust. The implications of the notes were clear, and there could be no doubt that this man had come to the deserted edifice 42 years before in quest of a newspaper sensation, which no one else had been bold enough to attempt. Perhaps no one else had known of his plan. Who could tell? But he had never returned to his paper. Had some bravely suppressed fear risen to overcome him and bring on sudden failure?